Welcome to VPG's Virtual Water Cooler Chat Podcast, where we share lessons and stories of women professionals to help empower other women and expand a greater circle of influence. So we walk our journey with those who understand and appreciate us. Today, our guest interviewer for Virtual Water Cooler Chat, Sheena Yap Cheng, will be chatting with Judy He. Judy is a patent attorney at Crowell Moring LLP. She has a significant amount of experience with litigating and resolving complex patent, trade secret, and commercial licensing disputes. Judy is on the board of Intellectual Property Law Association of Chicago, IPLAC, and she teaches legal writing as an adjunct professor at Loyola University Chicago's School of Law. Judy loves being in Chicago, and she is very passionate about diversity, equity and inclusion, and mentorship. Judy also has an active pro bono practice. She has successfully obtained predicate orders for special immigrant juvenile status in Illinois state courts and succeeded in obtaining asylum for immigrant families in Chicago Immigration Court. In 2021, Judy was a recipient of the National Immigrant Justice Center's Rising Star Award. She has also been recognized twice by the American Bar Association Standing Committee on Pro Bono and Public Service as a Pro Bono Leader for her contributions to the ABA's Free Legal Answers Project.
Hey, Judy, welcome to the Virtual Water Cooler Chat Podcast. It's such an honor to have you here as a guest. I'm just curious, how do you know Ashley?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I know Ashley more so online. We connected via social media. And I think it's great just recognizing each other's posts and finding a common ground there. Ashley and I also both in the patent industry. And I feel, it's helpful too to have that common ground.
That's amazing. And I know Ashley's been such great, just a great person to have. She's been out there just creating a space, especially for patent lawyers, especially, as Asian women, there's not a lot of lawyers out there, right? So that community is very small and we should be all supporting each other. But I was just curious, how did you get started as a patent attorney?
Sure. So for me, it's kind of a unique story. I'm still the first and only lawyer in my family. And at the time, I remember thinking about going to law school. It really was because, I have a chemistry background and a finance background. And I was thinking to myself that I can go to medical school or grad school, and neither of which really appealed to me at the time. And I didn't see myself as either of which in my future career. And I started talking with other people, and eventually someone recommended you should look into law school. I was in the University of Iowa too, and Iowa had a great law program. And so I started doing some more investigating, and I realized that, I love to write. And I figured that law school would be a really unique direction in my career that I've never thought of before. And so I figured I'll try it out. And if I don't like it, it's only 3 years. If I love it, then, it's not bad.
Awesome. And I know you said you were the only lawyer in the family. So, what was your parents' reaction when you mentioned, I want to get into law, I wanted to be a lawyer? Were they supportive or was it the opposite? I was just curious.
I think they were in general supportive, but they were a little afraid. I think that's because, again, being an immigrant family, it's more of you're going to law school. We don't know any lawyers. We don't have anyone who you can rely on if you have questions or you need advice on. So you're going to be by yourself in this endeavor. Are you okay with that? And I think that, I was, had to think about it a while, but I realized I do want to test it out. And I think that, notwithstanding their concerns, they were in general support and they realized that, it's something that you want to do, you should test it out and do it.
I love that. I know it's sometimes not easy when you're that first person, right? Being the trailblazer and not having that guidance, but sometimes that can be a good thing, right? Because then you get to figure out what works for you, what doesn't work. Yes, we're going to make mistakes along the way. But then you made it happen. You're here today. You're a patent lawyer. And I know your journey probably wasn't easy, especially, as an Asian woman, there's such a small percentage when it comes to representation of, Asian female lawyers in America. I mean, in general, I think for Asian Americans, it's maybe about 4%. And then the ratio to men and women, of course, is, not proportion, right? I mean, it's probably like 3-to-1 or 2-to-1. So that number gets even smaller. And so I just want to say thanks, for going out there and being that representation, because I know it's not easy. Did you grow up in the States all your life? I was just curious.
Yes, that Midwesterner. So staying in the Midwest all my life.
And what was it like growing up in the Midwest? Like, I'm pretty sure in the Midwest, there wasn't a huge Asian population, correct? So what was growing up in the Midwest like?
It was different, I feel. I mean, you're right with that. There's not a whole lot compared with the coastal area for sure. It's definitely not New York or Los Angeles. But I think looking back, I mean, it's been it's one of the reasons why I love the Midwest is that it is a supportive community. And I feel that for my family and I, there were times that we did feel that we were one of the few, or we were sometimes the only Asians in the community. But then the community that we were in, I think we were very fortunate. Everyone was very supportive. And it was overall, looking back, it was great.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I'm glad you were able to have that supportive community, because I think support is so important, right? Especially in a journey, especially in a high pressure job like being a lawyer. So I love that. Now, I also heard that you have such a strong pro bono presence, especially with immigration law. Can you share why you chose this area of pro bono practice?
Well, immigration in general has always been something that I've been very interested in. And I think it's just, again, growing up in an immigrant family, in that connection, and realizing the challenges and struggles that an immigrant family can have. And so when I decided to become an attorney, it's just an area that I realized that it's very impactful. There's that opportunity to really play a profound impact in someone else's life and help them out. And in working with them, with my pro bono clients, it's just astonishing as to what they've gone through. And at the same time, being able to connect with them and also to represent them is truly a privilege and honor. And also, I love how it's just an opportunity to help someone have a new beginning. With some of these clients are looking for a new beginning or a second chance in the United States, and being along a part of their journey is truly pretty honorable.
Thanks for sharing that. And I noticed you've won some amazing awards, right? In 2021, you were a recipient for the National Immigration Justice Center's Rising Star Award. You were also recognized twice by the American Bar Association Standing Committee on Pro Bono and Public Service. And also in 2021, ABA's Free Legal Answers Project. Also being a leadership council on Legal Diversity Pathfinders program. I mean, first of all, congrats to all that. I mean, that's amazing that you've won so many awards, as your time as a patent lawyer. And for you, how important are those awards for you? What is the significance of that?
It is significant because it's nice to be recognized and acknowledged for the diligence and hard work that's gone behind. And I'm very grateful for that. But at the same time, too, I would, the award itself, I feel, wow, it is important. I try to look behind that and to just recognize how fortunate I am again to be supported, and at the same time, just grateful that there is that recognition.
Thanks for sharing that. And in your patent law journey, did you ever go through any trials or tribulations or challenges? I've spoken to a lot of female lawyers, right, from different cultures, different backgrounds. Some of them, had to go through a lot of challenges, right? Not being taken seriously, a lot of gaslighting, sexism, racism. I was just curious, have you ever encountered anything like that in your journey, especially being in a white male dominated industry?
From time to time, I feel that there is that experience that does pop up. And for me, I think that it might just be the way that I was raised. I was always raised to focus on the positive, and to, have confidence in my own path and in myself. So then when those experiences do come up, while it is disheartening, but I do find that I'm able to think more about, what I can control, what's within, what is important to me. And then I feel that it's more a reflection as to the party who made those comments, as to more of a reflection as to me. So yes, while it is disheartening, I do find a way to brush them off.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. I know sometimes it's easier said than done to just brush them off, right? And it takes a lot of work on us to just keep moving forward when things like that happen, because it happens more often than we realize, right? And sometimes we just got to learn to, look at the eye on the prize, right? And especially in the profession that you're in, it's not always easy. So I'm glad you were able to share that. Do you have any recommendations on how to make IP in the legal space more welcoming for women practitioners with DEI efforts, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I think that's a good question. It's not an easy question or easy answer. I can say from my own experiences, I feel that one of the fundamental cores with diversity, equity, and inclusion is to make the other party feel seen. And I feel that if there's, there's a lot of programs, there's not initiatives trying to do that, but I think it really involves more of a local, as opposed to a higher level program, more at the local level for people to take that initiative and to reach out to your colleagues or reach out to someone who they haven't talked to before and to make that human connection. I feel that once those connections I feel are made at a human to human level, as opposed to a higher level program that we have and we all sit through. So I feel that it really is more of a, this, maybe just a more one by one effort, but really just involve everyone's participation in that.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so true, right? I mean, there's a lot of, DI efforts out there, but sometimes it's just a lot of smoke and mirrors and no one's really putting action into it. And it's important, right? Especially since there's a lot of underrepresented groups out there and we have to make the most effort to feel seen, right? Especially after watching the Oscars and seeing so many amazing things happen, like Michelle Yeoh winning Best Actress, First Asian Woman, Ke Huy Quan winning Best Supporting Actor. I mean, he came back after almost giving up acting. And so that's one way of kind of just opening the doors for everyone else. But then we still have a long way to go. It's great that we have made strides, but we also need to put in the work to go out there and make that happen. I really love that you mentioned that. What do you do to balance the stress between being a very intense litigation practice and focusing on mental wellness? Because I know in our culture, mental health is not, a topic that's most talked about. Most of the time, our Asian parents will tell us probably that it's not real, or we just keep things to ourselves. But what do you do, especially, being in a high, intense job like what you do, or a profession?
That's another good question. I think I've tried a number of things over the years. But recently what I found is helpful is mental wellness, or setting aside time for myself, is to be more goal-oriented. And I find that, it's important to me that I do something, quote unquote fun, but something for myself, every day if I can. And it can be really within that goal. It can be anything. It can be really, whether it's reading a book, taking a walk, or like treating myself after coffee, something along those lines. I find having that flexibility as to the activity itself is helpful, because then it doesn't really, I don't have to do the same activity, for example, for a number of certain period of time, but I'm able to do something different a little bit if I have to, but then still, still achieving the goal at the end of the day is helpful for me.
Awesome. And I love, that you mentioned those little things, right? Because it's those little things that really make a big difference in our lives. Being able to read a book, have a cup of coffee to ourselves, and having that self-care and self-love is so important to work on our mental health. I know it's sometimes not always easy to share how we're doing or being vulnerable because of our culture, but the more we can take these little steps, the better we can get. So I love that you mentioned that. And aside from being a phenomenal patent lawyer, what do you like to do outside of your profession?
I love to spend time with family. We're a small family, and I think that it's important, for me to connect with them. And it really is something that I find a way to reach out and just check in every now and then. Because things can get busy, but it's always important to remember too that there are certain things beyond being a lawyer that's important as well. And family is very high on that list. I also like to run a lot, and I find that running is a really good way, in terms of wellness for sure too. But at the same time, it's just a good way to keep myself on track and to think to clear out my thoughts. And it's been helpful from that perspective.
I'm like you. I love to run, as long as the weather's nice. I mean, I live in Toronto. We have winter, we have snow, but in the summer and spring, while the weather's nice and sunny, for me, going out for a run is very important. Just for me, it's my form of meditation, and it just kind of helps me mind up everything and gets refocused, recalibrated, especially if I'm going through just certain mental health issues, right? Because we all go through them. We're not always going to be 100% confident. There's days where we're going to feel down on ourselves. And sometimes we just need an outlet to go out there to let it all out so that we can have new energy in. And family is so important, right? They can, especially our parents, right? They migrated to North America to have a better life for us, to give us a better life, sacrificed a lot. What are some of the things that you've learned from your family or your parents that kind of help you in your patent law journey?
I think it's a lot of my core values come from my parents. So sense of responsibility, hard work, diligence, and also grit and resilience too. And I think that watching them, things weren't easy. A lot of times it was very hard. And they've gone through the experience of trying to relearn something completely new. And for me, to watch them go through learning a new language, learning a new culture, and seeing how they persevere, now seeing the challenges is both inspirational and also motivating, because it makes me more appreciative as to what I have, the sacrifices they went through to make sure that I have a better future in this country. And I think that it's those core values that I rely on, even in my daily practice, to help me be a better lawyer.
Thanks for sharing that. And it's so true. Sometimes, we can pick up, some great things that we can learn from our parents and use it in our own journeys. Grit is so important, especially, when you're in your own path, trying to forge a path, trying to trailblaze something. I mean, it's not easy. There's going to be challenges, roadblocks. And I think as we share our journeys, it's important to share these struggles we go through, right? Because if not, then people are going to think it's just easy, when really it's the total opposite. I mean, like you mentioned, you went through some hardships, you worked through them, you kept pushing forward. And I think grit is one of the most important things, right? Having grit, having persistence, being out there, being able to create that change that we want to see in this world, right? Especially if we want more women being in law, right? More women practicing law, showing them what's possible as well. So I really love that you mentioned that. And anyone who's listening to this, they're in their own journey to become a lawyer. What are some words of wisdom that you would love to give them? Giving yourself grace, I think, is something that I realized later on in my career than that before. And I think it stems from, having different types of challenges pops up, right? And I think that it's not until after going through them to fully appreciate the lesson behind each challenge. And then to realize that a career is not linear, and that there are highs and there are lows, and that for sure you should enjoy the highs. But then in terms of the low times too, recognize that there is oftentimes a lesson behind it, and that this time will pass. Once the time passes, to be more appreciative as to the lesson that was learned and what you can take from that to move on. That will help in the long run for that individual to become a better lawyer too. And also at the same time, check in with yourself every now and then to make sure you are still on the right. Because there's definitely, I think people think that they want to be a certain career at different stages of life. But recognizing that there is that flexibility. The law degree is powerful, and there's definitely more than one type of career. You don't have to be in big law, and you don't have to be in government. There's many, many different options available when there's public interest, or sometimes not even doing a legal career. A law degree is helpful just to provide that perspective. And so to have that knowledge, I think is good in recognizing you don't have to do something that, whether it's most people do, or whether it's your best friend, you don't have to follow the same path. You have that liberty to pursue your own passion. I love that. And what do you love about patent law? I think for me, it's doing something completely different than what I imagined. And I go back to when I was an undergrad, I didn't think patent law was a possibility. And I think that it was something that not until I really thought about going to law school that I considered maybe I'll go, do patent law, maybe I'll look more into it. And then fast forward a few years from now, I look back and it's just, the day-to-day that my career is just a different direction than what I thought was possible. And I do feel that representation matters from that perspective, because this is a career that's available, especially for women in hard sciences, right? But then it's just not sometimes that obvious, because I think there are more panels that emphasize that they may think that's more traditional. But for me, I think it's just doing something completely different than what I imagined. And it's been great. I love it. Thanks for sharing that. And, I just would love to hear, what are some of the most interesting stories you have in your journey as being a patent lawyer? The wins, the highs, the lows, was there any particular stories that stand out that kind of help you become who you are today?
I don't know if there's a particular story, but I do think that, I do believe that my career is more like a journey that I'm still on. And I think that overall, looking back at when I first started to where I am today, I think that there's been a lot of lessons learned for sure. And in terms of the wins, it really is the people who I've surrounded myself. I think that, I go back to community, but it is very important to me. I feel that it's something that, I've been lucky and fortunate to be surrounded by mentors, to find the people who I know matters more, and to be able to now, figure out who I, can trust and rely on. And that journey, I feel, and finding those individuals is something that I find to be the most valuable part.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned you had mentors that helped you along the way because, especially in our culture, it's not always great to ask for help, right? It's seen as a handout or a weakness. But is there one particular mentor that really, that you just really looked up to and really helped you in this journey, believed in your abilities, that you can be a patent lawyer?
I've had a number of strong women in my career early on who I feel trusted my ability and my potential. And I look back and then they're to this day, very important mentors in my life. And they're just excellent role models. And I think that sometimes it's not in a mentor in the sense that, we don't have to work together day to day. It's more of someone who I, through observing them, through working with them before, there's just excellent qualities about them. And it's stuff that I've learned, and it's something that I find, whether or not I incorporate into my practice, is still important to know that that's a different perspective out there that they have, and I find that to be the most powerful.
I love that, and I love that you mentioned, strong women that really help you out because having, strong women as mentors is so important, especially in our journey, no matter what industry we're in. We definitely need more women mentors out there who can pave the way, who can show us what's possible, who can, just make you believe in yourself, because that's so important. Without these female mentors, where would we be today? Being able to see, women out there who are doing great in their industry, being able to break barriers, break glass ceilings, create a better representation, that's all important. And I was just curious, do you also mentor the next generation, especially, if they want to become a lawyer? Do you ever do any work in that field?
I do. Occasionally, I mentor law students and younger attorneys.
Is there any stories that you could share, through your mentoring journey?
I think overall mentoring, what I find is that I see myself sometimes in their shoes. Yeah. And some of the questions that they're asking, they remind me a lot of when I was a law student or younger attorney. And I really love to being able to give back, and also realizing too that I can help them along their journey. And it's gratifying to be able to know that, I'm helping out. And because the next generation, they're powerful. I mean, it really is in this industry, in this profession, there is that responsibility to make sure that the next generation of lawyers are able to rise up. Times are changing, but still, I think that we have to rely on them to know what works in their times. There were mentors too who paved the way forward to me. I just want to be in that position to pave the way forward for others as well.
Thanks for sharing that. And I'm sure there's a lot of women out there who's probably going to want to know how they can team up with you for mentoring and things like that. And it's so great that you're giving back. I think that's really important, right? And we can help someone along the way in their own journey and not realize they're not alone in this journey. There's someone out there who can kind of show them the ropes and mentor them along the way. Do you have any upcoming events that you will be in or attending, or any projects that you're working on later in the year?
There's a number of upcoming events. So I'm involved with a number of local bar organizations in Chicago, and there's a number of them that are coming up in the spring and summer. And I think that, it's maybe going back to some other general advice that the other question you had earlier, but for younger attorneys or law students too, if they're interested in any organizations, to do definitely get involved sooner rather than later. And then too, if there's anyone who's interested, feel free to reach out, whether, to me, for example, if any organizations I'm a part of, I'm always happy to talk more about them.
Awesome. And how can they connect with you? Is it, do you have social media, email? Feel free to share, how they can contact you.
LinkedIn will probably be a good area. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Judy. It's been such a blast connecting with you, learning about your story, and we're so grateful again to have you as a guest.
Thank you for having me.